For most purposes, I think the best way of thawing frozen meat at home is to submerge it under barely running cold water. I'm going to show you my experiment that cemented that conclusion in my mind, and we're going to learn about the physics of why this method works so well. I'm also going to show you some other options, but first let's talk about why you'd want to deal with frozen meat in the kitchen. Maybe you just got a good deal on some steaks, so you bought some extra to freeze at home. But the main reason that I buy frozen meat is because it's really the only way for me to get really good meat, like prime or grass-fed beef. Check out these beautiful grass-fed ribeyes I got from students at Berry College up in North Georgia. Andrew Well and his classmates look after this herd of Angus cattle. It's not unusual for small producers to only sell frozen meat to consumers, so if you really care about your beef and how it's raised, frozen might be your best bet.
We raise them out here. We got a couple pastures that we move them from. We do a little rotational grazing, and that helps keep the pastures up and we don't have a lack of nutrients in the fields. And we let them graze freely. They're not confined or anything.
In contrast, most cows that you'd see in the meat aisle lived much of their lives in feedlots. The grass feeding is healthier for you, the cow, and arguably the environment. A lot of people think the grass feeding also makes the beef taste better, but if you want some really serious fat, you gotta mix some grain into their diet too.
We go with the grass-fed grain finish so we get that nice marbling in there.
Yeah, you do. Look at that. I'm gonna get back to you boys later. But first, an experiment. Here's these 4 cheaper steaks I got from the grocery store and froze. We'll thaw one by just moving it to the fridge. That's easy, it's safe, but holy crap, it took 13 hours to thaw. And that's a relatively small piece of meat. Bigger things are gonna take days and days in there. It's a great method if you've got the time, but let's just say you don't. Another one will thaw in the microwave. I'll just turn the power way down, that should be safe, and 5 minutes later, that doesn't seem to be doing very much. Well, let's just turn it up a little bit higher and then, I cooked it. I totally cooked it. That happened so quickly too, and now it's ruined. Third steak I'm just gonna leave on the kitchen table. No, actually I'm gonna be slightly smarter than that and leave it on an aluminum baking sheet. Aluminum is about the most thermally conductive metal you're likely to find in your kitchen. It's for the same reason that pizza steels beat pizza stones. Metals are electrically conductive and electrons can convey heat. Aluminum is crazy conductive. It's just bad at holding on to heat, that's why we don't use it for pizza, but it's good for thawing stuff. 2 hours later and this is ready to cook. 2 hours ain't bad. Some food safety obsessives would say this is dangerous though. The surface area of that meat, which may be contaminated with bacteria, is close to room temperature for a lot of this time, which would allow bacteria to multiply. I don't know, you're gonna sear the exterior anyway, right? That would kill all of that bacteria on the surface, so I don't know, whatever. But here's the method that keeps everyone happy. Put a bowl in the sink, fill it up with cold tap water, and dunk in the steak. Then just reduce the water to a trickle, cold tap water. I'm not kidding you, that steak was thawed and ready to cook after 20 minutes. Yeah, the water was basically room temperature, but it thawed so quickly there simply wasn't much time for surface bacteria to multiply under there. Why does this work so well? Well, let's go back to the campus of Georgia Tech and consult Dr. Shannon, an expert in heat transfer.
In the air, you're looking at a heat transfer coefficient on the order of 5 to 10 watts per meter Kelvin, right? And then if you're able to submerge it and circulate that fluid, you're on the order of 100 to 1,000 watts per meter squared Kelvin.
But why, right? Well, basically heat is transferred when a hot particle comes into contact with a cooler particle and transfers its heat over. And water simply has more particles to come into contact with other particles and do the job.
Liquids are more dense than gas, and that density matters because it's the collisions that are occurring, the molecular collisions that are occurring on the surface, right? And so with a liquid, you get a lot more collisions than with a gas. For still water, it would beat still air. Exact same reasoning. Right? It's how many collisions, what frequency of collisions are you getting?
But then you add a little bit of motion to the equation and things really speed up. That's why we did this under running water. Not to replenish the bowl water with warmer water as the steak sucks the heat out of the water around it. We're just doing this to get the water moving a little bit. That's constantly bringing a fresh wave of warmer water molecules into contact with the cooler molecules in the steak.
We know, you blow across a hot soup spoon, right? It cools quicker than if you just let it sit and then drink it.
Yeah, you probably could accelerate this process a bit by using warm water, but cool water is probably safer from a bacterial standpoint. You also don't risk accidentally poaching your beef in this water, and honestly, I don't think that it makes much of a difference. It's the density and the movement that thaws the steak. Great method. There is a special bonus method for thawing meat: Don't. If you're planning to cook it whole, you can put a rock-solid frozen steak into a low oven and cook it straight away. That might even result in a better tasting finished product than any of these methods we've just discussed. I'll show you how it's done next time.